Welcome to the show, everybody. Today we have a very special guest. He's an author and a former chief evangelist for a company called Apple you might be familiar with. His name's Guy Kawasaki. Guy, how you doing?
Thank you. Nice to be with you this Saturday night.
Yes, it is. Saturday night before Christmas. Everybody's going crazy. And you just recently announced some very big news. You got yet another book coming out.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I wrote a book called APE, which stands for Author, Publisher, Entrepreneur. And it's basically my attempt to help people become effective self-publishers.
Yeah, I mean, we really don't need gatekeepers anymore, do we?
I don't think so. I think there are other and better proxies for quality. In the old days, the fact that Random House or Penguin or Simon & Schuster picked a book out of the thousands of proposals helped. But I don't know about you, but when I buy a book, and it's typically an ebook, Kindle, I don't even see who publishes it anymore. I mean, I know it's there somewhere in all that page, but I don't really see it. I look at the number of stars, and I read, 2 or 3 of the first, few reviews, and boom, I'm, one click, and it's in my basket and whispering to me.
Well, this certainly is a big deal now. Adobe has a product called DPS, Adobe Digital Publishing Solutions. Of course, there are several other well-known ways to get ebooks out of things, and lots of people have content to share. Now, I wonder, is the book in any way, or is your philosophy in any way influenced by the long tail?
Well, certainly my philosophy is influenced by the long tail because it used to be a very short tail. So a bookstore could only be 10,000 square feet. And if it was 10,000 square feet, it could only hold, pick a number, 100,000 titles. So in those days, because of physical limits, there was a reason to have a gatekeeper. And so you had to pick the sweet spot of the tail, which means, the New York Times bestsellers.
Right.
The top 100,000 titles, right? But now, Amazon and Nook and iBookstore, they virtually are unlimited in size. So you have something about the Tibetan Hockey League, and only 3 people in the world want it. But so what? It's a PDF sitting on some Amazon server. It doesn't matter if that PDF exists or not. It's not like it's going to cost Amazon, any marginal significant cost. And if 3 people want to buy it a year, then hallelujah, right? So,
yeah, this does allow for niche publishing, and I would suggest that Tibetan hockey would be perhaps the smallest niche you could find. You are a hockey player. I'll point that out to our audience. I am a huge hockey fan. I never learned to ice skate, but I love to watch hockey. I've photographed hockey. I think it's the most incredible sport in the world, and if you ever get a chance to see a hockey game at rink level on the glass, go do it, because then you see how fast those guys are.
Well, I just want to clarify something. I play hockey. That's not the same as I am.
I get it.
Yeah, to put it in terms you might be even more familiar with, I take pictures.
Yes.
I am not a photographer.
I understand, but you have fun with it. I know you enjoy it. So what motivated you to write the book?
Royalty. Well, the story is that I have to take you back one more book before this. So I had a book, 2 books before this, called Enchantment, and it was published by Penguin, New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, just everything going for it. And for a speech for a large tech company in the Bay Area, they wanted to give 500 ebook copies away to 500 customers as a promotion. And so I thought, hallelujah, 500. How often do you sell 500 books to one customer, in a shot? And so I contacted Penguin, and Penguin says, well, we don't sell ebooks directly to clients. You have to go through one of our resellers, Apple, Barnes & Noble, or Kindle. And so I tell this woman who's running this promotion, we can't sell it to you direct. You have to go to these resellers. So she goes to Apple and says, I want to buy 500. And so she starts buying them. And like at number 12, the system stops her because I don't know why. She's buying too many books. And she contacts Apple, and Apple says, well, the best way you can do this is buy 500 promos and then scratch off the back, get the number, and enter it one at a time or send it.
Oh my gosh!
So she gave up with Apple. She tried Nook and she tried Kindle. At the end of the day, she had basically 500 line items on her credit card statement. And so I heard that. This just cannot be. I mean, how can you not be able to process an order for 500 of anything? So at the same time, I fell in love with Google Plus, and so I decided to write a book about Google Plus. And because of that experience with Enchantment, I decided to try self-publishing on a niche book that I didn't have much to lose. So I self-published What the Plus for Google Plus, and I found out that it's a very, very idiosyncratic, confusing, and often contradictory process. And so I thought, Guy, you have fair amount of technical knowledge. You have a lot of friends who are experts, and you're having this much trouble. Imagine what John or Jane Doe are trying to do, write their first novel and self-publish it. They must be pulling their hair out. So that's when I decided to write Ape.
Well, and let's talk about some things that folks who haven't written books before may not know. If you're the author of the book, now I'm assuming you probably get a better deal than I did with my publisher, but I got like 7 to 12 cents on the book, on the dollar on each book. So, my book cost $32, and by the time I split it with my co-author and everything else, we each made $1. And people are acting like, oh, you're just trying to sell books. Yeah, like it's really going to change my life to make that extra dollar. The publisher takes the lion's share, the distributor takes the lion's share, the retailer takes the lion's share. The way you're advocating doing it in Ape, and I've been privileged enough to get a little bit of an advanced look at it, which I really like it. You're talking about a way where we take control. That means we get all the royalties less whatever distributor we go through, 30% maybe with Apple and 20% with Amazon, etc. That's a big difference.
So I'm selling Kindle ebook only for $10, $9.99. I make $7 per copy.
Yeah.
So $7 on a $10 book.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
To make that on a hardback, $26 suggested retail book that is really for sale at $16, you'd have to sell 3 of those books to make the same amount make on one $10 ebook.
Yeah.
And I mean, the numbers are just crazy. Now, this assumes, however, that you are not only an author and a publisher, i.e., you write the book and you can, put it together. You also need to be the E part, the entrepreneur, because the book is not going to sell itself.
Well, and we both know that the book marketing firms aren't going to really help you if you're going with a traditional publisher, so it's always been on the author to sell the book. But I really like that you spent time in Ape talking about that, because you're right. I mean, I know lots of people say, oh, I got a great story. I'm like, well, it doesn't mean a thing if you can't get people to pay attention to it. What percentage do you think each section of the book is devoted? Do you have that number in your mind, or an approximation?
It really is a third. I mean,
okay.
You have to write. Everybody knows that.
Right.
They will come to the realization that they have to publish it, which means they have to get it and designed and cover designed and laid out. Not everybody realizes that. They think that's easy and magical. But the part that most people absolutely do not understand is marketing. They think, for example, that if you go with a New York publisher, the New York publisher is calling up Oprah for them and calling Sawyer, and it's just a piece of cake, and next thing you know, you're on 60 Minutes. If they only knew that a traditional publisher, it pushes your book for about 3 weeks, and at that point, if it sells well, they'll put more effort into it. If it doesn't, they dump you. And
yeah, my publisher issued a press release, I think. Yeah, that was, and then they took credit for getting me on blogs where my friends had already said they were going to talk about the book. So I'm really excited about this because you're going to be not only sharing your knowledge through this book, but you're coming to Orlando, Florida, January 8th through 11th. You're going to be one of the keynotes at a special conference called TAP 2013. And this has been put together by a group called IAE Pub, which stands for the International Association of Independent Publishers or something like that. And this conference, you're going to be speaking about the book, and everybody who comes gets a free copy of the book. And what are you going to talk about during your keynote? Can you touch on a few things for us?
I always use the top 10 format. So I do a speech about the top 10 tips for people who want to self-publish. But Scott, you can tell me whatever to speak about because...
Well, I want you to speak about whatever you want. I personally am more interested in the evangelism part of it because I've said this many times to you and when we've had these interviews, and I've said it on my various blogs and podcasts, your book, The Macintosh Way, turned out to be a seminal book for me, and I've run my entire business based on the evangelism structure you talked about in that book, all the way back at your first book. And, there are parts of evangelism in all of your books, but it's very critical, as you say, with a self-published book. If you're not out there evangelizing it, who's going to know about it?
I will be happy to do that. It sort of depends on if they're all, published authors, then yeah, I don't need to talk about what the pain is about writing. But I'm a flexible guy, and
I can tell you, even the established authors need more help on the marketing side, because as we've established in this conversation, I don't care who you are, short of you or John Grisham or some really big name, there's very little marketing effort put forth by the actual publishers. It's usually on the author to do the thing. But we'll terminate this conversation where we sort of started. I love this story of somebody couldn't buy 500 copies of the book. I had a similar experience. I know other people who have. So I think that's why people are moving to this. It's not that they hated having a publisher and seeing their books in bookstores. It's that they hated not being able to sell the book and get the kind of money they think they deserve.
Yes, and I like to think of this. You know how there's craft brewers and there's craft coffee houses and there's craft cooking and there's artisanal this and artisanal.
Yeah.
I think it's time we have artisanal publishing where the author, craftsman, or craftsperson, to be politically correct, controls the writing, controls the content, controls the cover, controls all the design, and then controls the marketing. So, imagine if the only beer you could buy came from Anheuser-Busch, right? Or, it just would not be as interesting a world. So I'm pushing the concept of artisanal publishing.
I like that. So we're going to wrap up here. What's one or two really important tips for self-publishers that you could share in just a few seconds?
By far, I think the most important tip is the day you start writing is the day you start building your social media platform. Because at the end of the writing process and the publishing process, if you waited till that moment to start building your platform, it's too late. It takes a year to build a platform. So, truly, I hate to tell you, but if you want to be a successful ape, you have to spend 2 or 3 hours a day writing, and you need to spend an hour a day building your platform. And it's not serial process; it's a parallel process.
I like that. Now, I know you're a big proponent of Google+. What other social media platforms do you rely on for book publishing?
It's Google+, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, roughly in that order.
Okay, cool. Well, Guy, where can people find out what you're doing? Do you have a website, blog, or something you'd like me to point them to?
Well, if they want to see what I'm doing day to day, it's Google+, and I'm just Guy Kawasaki there. But if they'd like more information about the book, it's the domain Ape the Book.
ApeTheBook.com?
Thebook.com.
Okay. Well, listen, if you have got a chance to get to Orlando, Florida, January 8th, where the weather's going to be sucky everywhere else, but nice down there in Florida, get down there for the conference, get a chance to listen to Guy speak. He's one of the most dynamic speakers there are, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join us for the interview, Guy.
Thank you. Take care, Scott.